The Mad Science Awards.
What's done is done, and what I've done is right. It's the work of science.
Why can't you scientists leave things alone?
What? I'll show you who I am and what I am.
Welcome to Journey Through Sci-fi, where we journey through the many subgenres of science fiction on screen. I'm James.
And I'm Matt, and this series we have been exploring the sci-fi subgenre of mad science. And today's episode is our final episode of our journey through mad science. It's episode number 31. It is longer than our longest series to date, Space Opera, and this is our finale episode.
Yeah, it's been a long time we've been covering this subgenre of science fiction here on the podcast, but it has been a fun one. It's been dark, it's been gory, it's been colourful, it's been humorous. It's covered a wide array of different emotions as we've gone on through this journey through mad science and sci-fi.
So what have we learned on this journey? What makes a mad scientist?
Oh, it's like exam day, isn't it? Trying to go through all the, like, what have you actually learned from talking about mad science for 31 episodes?
Oh no. I wasn't paying attention during Dr. X.
Well, I think throughout it, the pinnacle figure of all of these mad science films has tended to be the mad scientist, which we followed throughout. And I think each of these mad scientists has been plagued by ego and hubris, but also had a deep kind of scientific curiosity and wanted to create something or do something. And I think over the course of the sort of like decades of films we covered on the podcast, I think we've seen the different ways different directors and screenwriters have approached this idea of a mad scientist. And it has changed as like time's gone on across the decades.
Yeah, it's that intersection of curiosity and ego and intelligence and some lacking some kind of scientific rigor or guardrails that allows all those other elements to kind of go off the rails, basically. And I think so often in our series, don't we see like one domineering film early on in a subgenre that is referenced back to or so influential on the genre? And for this, it has obviously been Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the book in particular, and then the movie in the 30s, and in general just the character of Victor Frankenstein has been the kind of the mad scientist in chief.
Yeah.
So we're going to do our traditional award ceremony later, and I think we're going to see some over-representation of Frankenstein in them, but I think that makes sense. He has been the central figure of this series, hasn't he?
Definitely. And I mean, we talked about it in one of the previous episodes when we talked about the Bride, but just how many iterations there have been of the Frankenstein story. And I think we joked that we've only covered about 6 of them in the podcast. But it's been interesting sort of tracking those changes on how the Frankenstein story has stayed the same and changed, and how it's become increasingly relevant to today and the idea of a mad scientist today and all of those things which we've explored throughout. And I think it's really interesting looking at the sort of different decades in particular that we've covered on the show. So if we go back to like the first beginnings of this, we looked at 2 films from the 1910s, and that was a time in when there was sort of coming up with how to depict mad science on screen. And looking at Frankenstein and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from 1910 and 1912, I think that showed us kind of mad science more as a kind of gothic cautionary tale rather than this kind of sci-fi nature that we know it to be now, with all the different iterations of mad science, because it's not just about a mad scientist. It can be about a crazy scientific idea that spirals out of control, as we've seen in many of the films. What did you think specifically about those kind of early depictions of mad science?
I mean, these must be 2 of the very oldest films we've looked at doing the podcast, because they were notably pre-cinema, you know, like they're films, but it's not the artwork, the art form of cinema that as we know it. It's pre cinematic language length, It's their technological attempts. But it also got us into that interesting topic of the mad science of filmmaking that we've come back to so many times, that it's a scientific medium that's evolved technologically over the last 100-odd years of films that we talked about. So I think that was a really nice way to get us into that sidebar topic that's come up so many times on the show.
And then we went from the 1910s into the sort of 1930s, and you could see that visual vocabulary of what a mad scientist is really being formed in those early 30s films, specifically James Whale's 1931 classic Frankenstein. What do you think were the bits from that kind of filtered down into the rest of the films in the 30s that we kind of looked at?
Yeah, I mean, it's that castle laboratory, the mixture of the gothic and the scientific that James Whale created in that film has really stood the test of time, and also like reshaped the Frankenstein story, because we talked, didn't we, about how it's so massively different from Mary Shelley's book, and it takes such a long time, we'll get to it, but such a long time for more faithful adaptations to come through, and it's a big reset on what Frankenstein means in culture.
And I think it was interesting when we looked at like that Frankenstein film and then the other films coming out at the time, the sort of the Universal monster films that came out, stuff like The Invisible Man in 1933 and Bride of Frankenstein, all of those ones, which were taking that kind of initial depiction, like you said, the depiction of the Gothic castle, which they've obviously got partly from some of the 1910s adaptations and the original story and all that kind of like visual stuff that they've taken on board. But also there were some films we covered in the 30s, which were a lot more dramatic and full-on watches than I was anticipating, because this was a time before the Hays Code, wasn't it? So, or the Hays Code was just coming in. So they were coming in with like film certifications and stuff like Island of Lost Souls and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I remember those being more violent and disturbing than I thought they would be.
Yeah, a classic era for the mad science movie.
Yeah, and obviously we see later on, as time goes by, people returning to that kind of grisly nature of the mad scientist. But in the 40s and 50s, it kind of went into a shift with the atomic age, didn't it? We saw more stuff about radioactive people and things like that.
Yeah.
The Incredible Shrinking Man, for instance, that was a really good adaptation of that. Dr. Cyclops was okay, but I don't think it really stuck in our memories, to be honest.
Yeah, this is a kind of a bit of a weird period, I think, actually. But you've got some classics like The Fly, the original Fly in that time.
Yeah, that was really interesting to look at. And obviously, because the more popularized version of The Fly now, the Cronenberg version, we covered later on, we went to the 80s. But we covered 4 films in the sort of 40s and 50s period during the series. And then we moved into the 60s. And I think we had one of the episodes titled like The Swinging 60s and looking at The Absent-Minded Professor and The Nutty Professor. And I think that was a really interesting time in cinema, with like the 60s being sort of like a free love movement and all of that kind of stuff. And things became a bit different with the way mad science was portrayed in that, because we saw like 2 comedy family friendly films in that instance, didn't we, in the form of Nutty Professor and The Absent-Minded Professor.
Yeah, quite the contrast here, but it's the same decade as Doctor Strangelove and Eyes Without a Face as well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, to juxtapose the fun comedic element, or I say fun comedic element. I remember you saying you weren't a fan of the comedy in The Nutty Professor. You thought Jerry Lewis was not.
Pissed me off. Yeah.
But yeah, there was something about that decade which was like really fun to explore. But I mean, when we look at The Nutty Professor from the 60s, that transformation scene was really good, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the best part of that film. Yeah, he did well there.
And then we had like a brief foray into the 70s, when we looked at stuff like Young Frankenstein, Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah,
I forgot, we've covered so many films throughout this series. I keep forgetting all the things that we've covered. But yeah, the 70s was a really interesting period. Then we moved into the 80s. The 80s, we covered a bunch of films. There was 10 films we covered in the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, we always do. I think the audience knows where our interests lie.
But I think during that period, it was more about sort of the commercialization of science. I mean, Ghostbusters was a really interesting one that we looked at with there, because you wouldn't expect us to look at a film like Ghostbusters necessarily, but it was that, I think you put it really nicely about how they were blue collar Americans trying to make a living as scientists, using their expertise to earn a little bit more money as Ghostbusters.
And they happen to exist in a fictional universe where paranormal entities exist, but they approach it with that scientific rigor. Looking at that gave me a different perspective on that film in particular. But also that was the era of stuff like Weird Science, where we got teenage wish fulfillment happening in the form of mad science. But yeah, there was sort of more body horror stuff. Like we said, The Fly came out. And then we moved into the 90s, which is mad science goes a bit more mainstream and a bit more blockbuster, perhaps, because we've got stuff like Jurassic Park in 1993, the big one. And people were returning back to the classics. You've got like The Nutty Professor coming back again, Flubber coming again. And then 2000s were another interesting, dark, ethical turn. I feel like we looked at quite a lot of like darker things, but then also superheroes and like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs came out. Yeah, good. Yeah. And so did Human Centipede.
Exactly. We like to keep it really varied on the podcast.
And then what did we have in the 2010s and 2020s?
Well, 2010s was a bit more, it was less about the sort of monster building, and it became more about, it seemed like it was more about the systems in place with kind of mad science. We looked at stuff like Downsizing, which was a film about how people could save money by turning really small. We got some
satires about capitalism in the mix, I suppose, haven't we? In a few of these films in the 2010s.
Yeah. And then when we came towards the end of the sort of journey through mad science, I think the 2020s, there's been a lot of returning and sort of the reclaiming of the mad science genre. It's been going back to a lot of the classics like The Invisible Man, like Frankenstein. I mean, there was 3 different iterations of Frankenstein that we saw in the 2020s. I mean, there was probably a lot more I know there were a lot more that were released around that time, but specifically in our series, we looked at 3 of the big ones, didn't we?
Yeah, we had the Poor Things came out in 2023. The new Frankenstein, still new at the time of recording, Frankenstein on Netflix, and the even newer The Bride out in cinemas recently this year.
So that's a little whistle-stop tour of all of the stuff we've covered and the different decades of mad science we've managed to delve into throughout the series.
58 films in total, plus a few Star Trek episodes towards the end.
Yeah, got to throw in the Star Trek episode every series. But yeah, that's a lot of ground to cover. And I think when we go through our film awards, I think it'll be a perfect time to spotlight the ones which we enjoyed and maybe didn't enjoy as much throughout the series.
Yes, so shall we move on to our awards categories for Mad Science movies? For new listeners, this is something we do at the end of every series of Journey Through Sci-Fi. We give out a few awards to our favourite films that we talked about this series across a handful of different categories.
How should we start the awards this year? Like, what kind of fanfare or drum roll do you want to hear going into the awards?
Well, I think actually you and I will do like a big musical number that'll play before the awards ceremony, but obviously that's just for the broadcast version. That won't be on the podcast version. So I imagine when they cut it down to a podcast, you'll probably just hear the end, kind of the end of the musical number, like the horns, kind of the big fanfare of the horns at the end of the musical, and then it'll go to that, because for rights reasons, obviously we can't play the big musical number that you and I do, and it is amazing on the broadcast, but we can't put that on the podcast.
It's got a bit of a rendition of putting on the Ritz in there as well.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very Busby Berkeley.
There's a nice bit where we go into like a lab, but there's loads of dancers there. And,
and the set
it's a real shame
apart.
we can't put it on the podcast.
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah. Maybe next year, guys.
Yeah.
The Mad Science Awards.
Well, without further ado, let's get into our first award, shall we? So, the first award that we have in our Mad Science Film Awards for this series and our conclusion show, I hope you're excited, It's for Best Mad Scientist.
Ooh, a big one to start with.
So the nominees are for Best Mad Scientist. We've got Dr. Henry Frankenstein from Frankenstein, 1931. We've got Dr. Moreau from The Island of Lost Souls. We've got Herbert West from Re-Animator. And Seth Brundle from The Fly.
Do you know, can I just say, until you just said that, I forgot that the character in Frankenstein is called Henry Frankenstein, because we've been talking for such a long time about various versions of the character Victor Frankenstein. I completely forgot they renamed him to Henry.
That was really funny. And do you remember when we looked at the 30s Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and it was Dr. Jekyll?
No, I don't remember that, actually.
It was Dr.
They all pronounced it Jekyll.
Yeah, they all said Jekyll.
Oh dear.
So yeah, but Henry Frankenstein, not Victor Frankenstein.
Yeah, Henry Frankenstein, as we said, kind of established the cinema's mad science archetype, didn't they?
Yeah, he has the iconic "It's alive" line in that 30s version of Frankenstein. The whole scene where he's creating the monster. He is very maniacal. He does kind of get it was all right, mate. It's fine you did that at the end.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, he is the archetype, isn't he? But then we've also got Dr. Moreau in here from Island of Lost Souls.
Is he one of our earliest real good comeuppance for a mad scientist?
Yeah, I think he really does get what he deserves by the end of it.
Brutally murdered by his victims, basically.
As it should be, I guess.
The best way to go for a mad scientist, probably. Herbert West, similar. Although, I mean, he then comes back, and we covered the sequels on
many
Patreon,
times.
I think.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. But yeah, he kind of gets what's coming to him, and an incredible kind of almost verging into a parody of the mad scientist, but just treading the line very comfortably between humour and horror, I think, in Re-Animator.
Herbert West had some great lines as well, didn't he? Just throughout the whole Re-Animator series.
Yes, it's. I love Jeffrey Combs, and he's in a lot of Star Trek, and I really love him in Star Trek. But this is quite literally the role he was born for. I don't think I've ever seen an example of an actor so perfectly suited to their role.
I just keep thinking about all the different things he said as well, like who's going to believe a talking head, get a job in a sideshow. He's just got some zingers throughout, hasn't he? And all of the things that happen to him are ridiculous. And I think it's the right amount of mad and comical. You can poke fun at Herbert West, whereas a character like Dr. Moreau, he is genuinely mad, but also dangerous mad.
Yeah.
Whereas Herbert is dangerous mad, but he's also ridiculous at the same time. So I think it's that kind of juxtaposition between those two mad scientists in particular, which is really interesting.
And then we've got Seth Brundle, who I think, less humour. There's some humour, but it's very dark humour in that film, and it gets progressively more horrifying as the film goes on. It's a proper descent into losing himself to his experiment.
When you brought him up then, I was like, oh, poor Seth Brundle. But is it poor Seth Brundle, or should he just not have been messing with teleportation devices?
Yeah. Should he have been working under more strict conditions?
Yeah, he needed to do a risk assessment, most definitely.
He's working in his flat, isn't he? His messy flat, and maybe a fly wouldn't have got in if he had a better lab. Although his argument would be if he got the funding for a better lab, and if the scientific community was behind him more, then he'd be able to work in better conditions, and the fly wouldn't have got in.
Yeah, but he did like to keep it all secretive, didn't he? He was like, no one's going to find out about my great invention, are they?
Yeah.
But yeah, do you think he gets what he deserves, or do you think he just...
That's an interesting question. He gets some of what he gets more, perhaps more than what he deserves, but I think all mad scientists do deserve a comeuppance, and I mean, he absolutely gets one. He learns his lesson, let's say. Yeah,
he definitely learns his lesson by the end of that film. Okay, so who are we voting for Best Mad Scientist?
I mean, I don't want to... I feel like we're going to have a disagreement straight away in the first category, but I think you know where my heart is on this. Like, for me, it's got to be Herbert West. He's one of my favourite characters in all of sci-fi, but I feel like, I completely acknowledge who the king of mad scientists is, and Herbert West couldn't even exist without Lovecraft wanting to write his own parody of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
But it's my boy, it's Jeffrey Combs. I love him so much. What do you think?
Oh, I do have a real soft spot for Herbert West in Re-Animator, but I think for me, it's got to be Henry Frankenstein, just because of the iconic nature of that, and just how much DNA in every other mad scientist has come from Henry Frankenstein, that depiction in that James Whale film.
Yeah, okay. Look, I'm not going to fight it, James. I know I'm in an indefensible position here. I just want the record to show that I put Herbert West up there and I did my best for him. But yeah, I accept Frankenstein is the best mad scientist. Of course he is. It's Henry Frankenstein.
What we'll do is we'll give like the full-sized award to Dr. Henry Frankenstein, and then we'll have like a little smaller version for old Herbert West.
It's a people's champion situation, you know, like there's an official winner, but everybody knows, you know.
I'd agree with that.
Herr Frankenstein is a most brilliant young man, yet so erratic. He troubles me.
I'm worried about Henry. Why has he left the university? He was doing so well, and he seemed so happy with his work.
Herr Frankenstein was interested only in human life. First to destroy it, then recreate it.
You'll never get credit for my discovery. Who's going to believe a talking head? Get a job in a sideshow.
So what is the next award we are dishing out on the award show?
So we talked best mad scientist, but what is a mad scientist without their big ego? So the next award category is biggest ego in a lab coat. And the nominations are Dr. Jack Griffin from The Invisible Man, Tony Stark from Iron Man, Victor Frankenstein from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and he's back again. It's Herbert West from Re-Animator.
Interesting. Okay.
So first we've got Dr. Jack Griffin from The Invisible Man, proper horror movie serial killer mad scientist character. Probably, I think, one of the first sort of serial killer mad scientists that we looked at in the series.
Yeah, he's got all these really grand plots as well, because he wants to create an invisible army to terrorize the nation and spy on people to get their world secrets, and just the way he's committing crimes and robberies. And then there's a moment where he makes a train go off the rails by like taking over the train controls. So he is really sort of just going all out. He's got big grand designs. He's got a big ego. He's clearly had his brain changed by using these chemicals to turn himself invisible. So I think all of those things are in his corner for being the biggest ego.
Okay, how about Tony Stark then in Iron Man?
Well, he's just really cocky, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, super cocky Tony Stark.
But does his ego make him more likable in that movie? What's the kind of how does the ego play out for him?
Oh, it's so tricky because he kind of learns the error of his ways, doesn't he? So he realizes it's not cool to be a big arms dealer when he is stranded in a cave in the middle of nowhere, having to create an iron suit to escape terrorists. So he's still got that ego, but I think there is something charismatic about his ego, and that's why he's a superhero.
Yes, he's got to have an ego to become a superhero. I think that's the other side of his ego. But he sort of, I guess, the story is him putting his ego to good use, isn't it?
Do you think in real life that superheroes would just have massive egos rather than being all altruistic?
I think that they would. I think a real life one would be more likely to be a kind of street level vigilante who has to keep it on the down low, because all superheroes ultimately, or most of them, are extra legal vigilantes, right? So they would be arrested. You know, like at the end of Iron Man, he's just like, I am Iron Man, and then the police would be like, or the military would just be like, oh, you're the guy that's flying around shooting missiles all over the world without our clearance, right? Straight into military prison with you. Whereas like a daredevil character who has to keep it secret and just beat up Wilson Fisk, that feels more realistic to me.
Okay, wow. Either way, Tony Stark's got a big ego, and I just loved it when you're flying around shooting missiles, unregulated. What a guy.
It's not a good look in the eyes of the law.
No, naughty boy.
So our next one is Victor Frankenstein, not Henry Frankenstein. Why have we gone Victor from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein instead of Henry Frankenstein?
I think there is something about Branagh's performance in this that is like, what do we call it? We called it like, I keep forgetting. It's like
rock and roll monster movie,
heavy metal kind of like version of Frankenstein, and just his ego is all consuming. I think also because this goes a bit more towards the source material than James Whale's version. So this particular iteration of Victor Frankenstein is more hell-bent on like making this creation come to life, and he is leaving all of his friends and family behind when he's doing it, and his ego does result in the death of the woman he loves, and all of that kind of comes to pass because of his hubris and his ego throughout.
And I think there's something uniquely meta-textual about this particular performance, because it's the director of the movie playing the lead character and directing himself, you know, topless and running around half naked, looking quite sexy. You know, there's some ego there, isn't there, that has to be recognised, that transcends the character of Victor Frankenstein, but is still there for you on screen to enjoy.
That is a really good point. If you're directing the film and starring in the film, you're going to get double ego points for that. Yeah. And who have we got as our last nomination in this category?
So again, Herbert West from Re-Animator, my favourite mad scientist. Just similar ego to Frankenstein. He just wants to defy death, just to prove that he is the best and the smartest. And throughout all the films, just sort of rampaging around, being annoyed at everybody around him because they are intellectually inferior to him, while still being and being just a downright evil villain, a horror movie villain that you completely root for across 3 movies, and you cannot hate because of how fun he is, even though he is so egotistical.
And I always think about that. There's that moment when he is talking in one of the lectures, and he is very antagonistic towards the lecturer. And so it just basically says, everything you're saying is wrong. I am right.
Yeah.
You are getting the wrong thesis here. You need to be paying attention to me. So I think that shows real ego. And he just happens to actually be wearing a lab coat. So I think that, again, that's extra points for biggest ego in a lab coat. He does wear it a lot.
So who out of these fine gentlemen do you think has the biggest ego?
Oh, I do want to say a little honourable mention for Buddy Love, though, because I feel like
Buddy Love from The Nutty Professor.
Yeah, Buddy Love in The Nutty Professor has a massive ego.
Sure.
But I suppose the sort of thing counteracting that is he is a scientist, but he's more sort of, I don't know, the scientist element isn't there as much, I guess, with Buddy Love.
Well, Buddy Love is the Mr. Hyde, as opposed to the Dr. Jekyll character. So that I think is what's keeping Buddy Love from the nomination categories, right? He certainly, when he's in that mode, and also in the Eddie Murphy version as well, the ego of Buddy Love is enormous, and he thinks he's, you know, God's gift to the world, to women, everything. But he's not so much the mad scientist as the creation, as the creature.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can see it. Okay, I think I know who I'm picking for this particular one.
I thought I did, but then, as we talked about it, and we talked about Kenneth Branagh. There's something about the doubling up of the ego. The director, you know, he's playing Victor Frankenstein, a classic mad scientist with enormous ego. It's a more faithful adaptation, so there's more of Victor's ego in the story than in James Whale's version. And then he casts himself, and he's got his kit off, and he's looking all sexy. Yeah, there's so much ego there. I can't. Oh, I don't think I can get past that.
You've absolutely swayed me.
What were you going to go for? Were you going to go for Herbert?
I was going to go for Herbert because in my head,
I'm killing myself here. I'm breaking my own heart, but like, it's that Branagh performance.
Yeah.
And I just want to go on record that I think Branagh's amazing in that film. I'm not trying to slag him off. But there's undeniable ego at work there.
I think you're right. I think it is the double whammy of lead and director that has to seal it for Victor Frankenstein. Oh, Kenneth Branagh in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Yep. So I think the award goes to him, right?
Goes to Kenneth.
Enjoy your award. We'll see you later. Bye.
What have I done?
Oh, God. No!
You fool, Victor Frankenstein of Geneva. How could you know what you'd unleashed? How was it pieced together? From bits of thieves, bits of murderers, evil stitched to evil, stitched to evil. Do you really believe this thing will thank you for its monstrous birth? Evil will have its revenge. God help your loved ones.
Okay, next award we have is Best Intentions, Worst Outcome. So this is for the mad scientist that might have wanted to do a really lovely thing for the world, and it just didn't quite go to plan. So in this category, we have John Hammond for resurrecting dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, Dr. Susan Tyler for engineering the Judas breed insects in Mimic. We've got Flint for trying to solve world hunger in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and Wayne Zielinski inventing the shrink ray in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Okay, there's an interesting selection of scientists working on these noble, possibly quite noble projects here.
I've got to say as well, I really enjoy this category because so much of the mad scientist archetype and that we've seen has been someone trying to create something for their own purposes, for their own glory. And then here are a bunch of scientists that might have had better intentions in the first place. And that kind of like goes against what people expect from this kind of mad science film.
Yeah, generally we were looking at scientists who just should have known better, basically. But sometimes we saw people who really were just trying to do their best, and this is a good example of that.
But John Hammond, though, he is a bit of a dick.
I've heard he's even more of a dick in the book. I haven't read the book version of Jurassic Park, but I've heard he's even worse. But yeah, this is a big corporate enterprise, isn't it, that he's trying to establish on the island?
Yeah, because he wraps it up in, you want to, like, all of these dinosaur specialists, hey, you really want to see a real life dinosaur and it's going to be fun for the kids and everyone's going to love it because we're bringing back dinosaurs. What a noble pursuit. But then also I'm going to make a shit ton of money.
Yeah, I think it speaks to Richard Attenborough's performance because he is able to wrap up all of that stuff in the kind of sweet cuddly grandpa of John Hammond. But you know that he's a pretty cutthroat businessman to have got to where he's got to, and he can just interrupt an paleontological dig to essentially sort of half kidnap two scientists and get them to come and check out his park so that he can get an endorsement for it. He's got a lot of consolidated power, but he's this sweet old man who's like, I spared no expense.
He's also Father Christmas, isn't he? I can't get past the idea that he is Father Christmas and Miracle on 34th Street. So that's in the back of your minds. He looks like Father Christmas anyway. But yeah, he's got this kind of plan to earn lots of money out of it as well. So, but then, I don't know, sometimes he seems really sad that it's all gone to shit. Yeah.
Well, you would be. I mean, it's not like it wasn't
he's lost a lot of money.
Yeah. People are dying.
It's like, yes, but look at the margins.
Okay, and then we've got Dr. Susan Tyler engineering the Judas breed in Mimic. Possibly the best intentions. I don't know about the worst outcome, maybe, but really
pretty bad outcome.
Pretty bad. But yeah, one of the least mad of the mad scientists. She is really, she is a professional. She is very good at her job, and it just all goes wrong further down the line. What are they trying to cure? There's like a epidemic illness that's completely wiped out like all the children in New York or something at the start of that movie. So she creates this breed of termites that are going to go and infect all the cockroaches or something like that.
Yeah, and because the cockroaches or something are spreading the disease, so they have to introduce something into the ecosystem to kill them all off.
Yeah, which is a great idea, and it works brilliantly as well. Everything's happy as Larry at the start of that movie, but they've still a lot of children died. But they have a successful cure for that illness, and then sadly they all rapidly super evolve, and then we have the events of the movie Mimic, monster movie in the sewers.
Yeah, exactly. But again, really noble intentions. She's trying to cure sick children,
and there's something there about the project completing successfully, right? Like Jurassic Park, I think all of these other ones, the self-contained project that has good intentions goes disastrously wrong, whereas Susan Tyler reaches an end point of her project and it is successful. It's just years later it kind of comes back to haunt her. So I think there is something in that from a scientific perspective.
But I mean, it does have a bad outcome with
a very bad outcome. Yeah.
Giant killer insects. Anyway, the next one we've got down here. So Flint from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. He's just a doofus, isn't he? He's just a goofy guy.
But he thinks he can solve hunger.
Yeah, he
by
does.
making it rain food from the sky.
He also has those shoes which never come off. Do you remember that? He's like sprayed his feet with these shoes. That stuck in my mind clearly from the film.
Like the shoes on his feet.
But yeah, so Flint wants to solve world hunger, and he kind of does, but he also creates giant sentient food, like giant sentient roast chickens as well, which kind of cause a few problems for people. And the weather goes crazy. Meatballs are flying from the sky. People love it at first. And it seems like he has got good intentions there.
Well, I mean, yeah, trying to solve world hunger is almost the stereotypical archetypal good intention to have, isn't it? It's like what you accuse billionaires of not doing is, well, you could solve world hunger with all that money. You know, like it's just such a simple and contained idea, a huge idea, but simple at its core. Let's solve world hunger.
But in terms of the outcome, is it the worst outcome? I mean, it's pretty bad catastrophe-wise.
Yeah.
You've got all of these like terrible weather instances involving giant food falling from the skies. But is it the worst? Is it worse than dinosaurs taking over an island or giant insects killing people?
Yeah, because it's quite contained to the island nation in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. I think it's going to get worse, I think, and it could escape. I seem to remember.
Yeah, it goes global, doesn't it?
Right,
I don't know if that's one of the
it's mostly
sequels.
contained. Like Jurassic Park is contained to the island, but I think rampaging dinosaurs is maybe a bit more serious than sentient food.
Giant food, I think, is a little less severe outcome-wise.
What about Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Wayne Szalinski?
He's another doofus, isn't he? He just wants to create something that can earn his family more money, and also he wants to make a big scientific breakthrough. I don't think he's really like selfish about it. He's just excited about the science that he's been making in his attic. So I think he does have really good intentions in that film. It is unfortunate that he turns his kids and the neighbor's kids tiny. Well, he basically almost kills those kids, doesn't he? Like, if he hadn't found them, it would have been, the worst outcome would have been he's killed his kids and his neighbor's kids. That's a pretty terrible outcome from inventing a shrink ray.
But that doesn't happen, and everyone is fine by the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Apart from his obviously traumatized children.
Yeah, they had a fun time. They got to ride on a giant ant. No, they've definitely been to some sort of like therapy after those instances. But yeah, what do you think? Because like his intentions are good, aren't they? And I think he's trying to do something for the space program.
Well, I think for my money, I would probably have to rule out Wayne Szalinski and John Hammond because they are both motivated by money. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and like scientific achievement through, needing to provide for your family and then getting good at that and wanting to sell your products and become a corporate entity like the heights of John Hammond. But that is not as noble of an intention as, stopping a pandemic that's wiping out children or trying to solve world hunger. Those are genuinely noble intentions. So I think I'd have to rule out Szalinski and Hammond from winning this. Who do you think? Well, what do you think? Like, in terms of those intentions?
I think I'd agree with that because if it's like monetary, it's not. It may be sort of for nice reasons, but at the same time, you're doing it for a purpose. It's like your job, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Whereas, I suppose Dr. Susan Tyler's job is to the biochemistry and whatever exact science she's doing in that with the bioengineering.
Yeah, but I don't think Susan Tyler gets paid more. She works at like the CDC or whatever. That is her salaried job. She's not getting, a bonus for she might do anything, whatever. But like, it isn't like there's not a direct line to massive financial success for She's like, she's got a sort of similar role to like Fauci or Chris Whitty. You know, they become the face of the pandemic in the sort of public sector, but that they don't immediately become millionaires just for doing that job. They are just sort of well known for being at the sort of front of the sort of public sector element of that crisis.
Whereas like Flint rises in popularity, doesn't he? He gets like the media will come to the island and find out more about his invention, and it becomes more that he's a celebrity now. So that seems like less altruistic than perhaps Susan Tyler.
There you go. I think process of elimination, then Susan Tyler is best intentions, worst outcome.
There you go. You can have this and enjoy the award and stay out the sewers and try not to make a big catastrophe like this happen again when you're doing your good science, Susan Tyler.
A fly can look like a spider. A caterpillar can look like a snake. The Judas evolved to mimic its predator. Us.
Hi listeners, hope you're enjoying the show. If you want to support us and get access to hundreds of hours of bonus episodes, you can sign up to our Patreon.
We've got discussions on all the latest sci-fi films in cinemas, the Bad Movie Bunker, and Patrons' Picks, as well as mini-series covering your favourite franchises.
Patrons get to have their say on what we cover, both over on Patreon and right here on the main show too.
So if you want to join, head over to patreon.com/Journey Through Sci-Fi.
Now, back to the episode.
Okay, our next category is the most unethical experiment. We've seen a lot of unethical experiments, so we're moving away from the good intentions now, and it's the kind of worst intentions. The first nomination is for human and animal vivisection, The Island of Lost Souls, Dr. Moreau. Human reanimation testing, Herbert West in Re-Animator. The Armitage procedure in Get Out, performed by, the members of the Armitage family. And then finally, the human centipede procedure from none other than the human centipede, conducted by Dr. Joseph Hyde.
Oh, it's some nasty stuff in this category.
Some real bastards.
Yeah, I love that in this series we've gone from talking about solving world hunger and saving sick children to animal vivisection and the human centipede procedure. Yeah, it's literally a mad series for mad science.
Lovely. So the creations on the Island of Lost Souls, the human animal hybrids that he creates, they're one of the more monstrous things we saw early on, didn't we?
Yeah, and I think it's the way he treats them as well, where the real sort of like unethical stuff happens, because he's operated on these animals and these humans, and he's created these new creatures. And you can hear the screams, can't you, in the Island of Lost Souls when he's doing the operations. And these creatures as well, they don't quite understand themselves because of the way they've been changed. And he rules over it like a slave master.
Yeah.
So I think that's all points for him winning this particular category, I would say, for Dr. Moreau.
Yeah. Well, again, then we have Herbert West from Re-Animator as the next one. And there is a similar element there. He's not creating a slave army in the way that Dr. Moreau is, but they do his bidding, don't they? He also sees them as puppets for his use, even though his ultimate aim is to try and properly bring them back to life just to prove that he can.
Yeah, I feel like the human reanimation test stuff, he is using freshly dead bodies, but then later on he does kill people in order to reanimate them fresh.
Yeah.
So that's unethical. But is it as grisly as the kind of vivisection stuff that Moreau's doing? I'm not 100% sure. It's a fine line in all this madness.
Yes, yeah, certainly. I don't know. We'll have to decide, I guess.
Yeah.
What about the Armitage procedure? I mean, this is taking people live captive and then just stealing their bodies, basically.
It's terrifying as well, isn't it? Because the psychological aspects, and then they've got the surgical aspects of the actual procedure. So it's got a lot to it. And I think, so in these sorts of creations that Dr. Moreau's making, they are new creations. They don't quite understand themselves or why they've been made, basically.
Yeah.
In the Armitage process, these are people trapped in their bodies.
Yeah, they retain their full consciousness. Yeah, but lose all of their autonomy.
And they're doing that purposefully, and they know that's part of what happens. So that I think that really brings up the sort of unethical nature of it.
Okay. Well, what about stitching 3 people bum to mouth while they're still fully conscious of that experiment in the human centipede?
Oh my God. I mean, it's just so grisly. It's so grisly, and it's so disturbing.
So
I'm speechless, man.
The thread here in this category is that it's scientists who devalue human lives in favor of their science and their experimentation, isn't it? A human life becomes less than the value of their own experimentation and their own in service of their ego, basically. But it's to what degree each of these is the most cruel on the victims of those experiments.
Yeah, because a lot of kind of the mad scientist stuff we've looked at is the idea of playing God and making life. But then this is all about like controlling life at the same time and having that control over life and death, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that really comes into this category.
That is a really good point. And I think I will make a case for who I think should win this one based around that, which is, I think it's the Armitage procedure, because they all have control over life and death, and they are all taking lives in the literal sense, but they don't actually fully kill the victims in Get Out. So even in a human centipede, the human centipede experiment doesn't work because he cannot keep that centipede alive. So as awful and disgusting as it is, they will die. There is an escape from the centipede. Pretty rough one, death, but you will get out. And in Get Out, you can't get out.
Yeah.
You are really trapped in your own body forever, basically. So I think it's the cruelty of actually not finally properly killing the victims in Get Out makes it the most unethical.
I think you're right, and it's that disregard for an individual's life, isn't it? So in the other versions, they're kind of like bringing people back or just doing certain. I think it's more about the fact that they think they deserve to have more life at the expense of someone else.
And all of these mad scientists sort of think that, don't they? They're all killing people in order to do their experiment, but it's that trade-off, killing people for more of your own life, stealing their bodies in Get Out, that feels like it makes it worse.
Yeah. I think it's got to be Get Out as well. I think most unethical experiment of the series, it's that. Yeah.
But a good movie.
Great movie.
Get out. Sorry, man. Okay. Get out! Yo! Yo, chill, man. Get out! Chill, man. Chill.
Okay, next up, we have Best Monster or Creation of the series. So the nominees we have for this category are Frankenstein's Creature from Frankenstein. Creature, not... Or should we say creation? Frankenstein's creation?
Is there a difference?
Well, I think throughout we've had this debate about whether he's a creature, whether he's a creation, whether he's a monster.
A bit more dehumanizing.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't use the word monster, do we? That's the thing we've learned about creations. But yeah, creature is also similarly dehumanizing in the same way monster is. So he is a creation. Yeah.
Okay, so Frankenstein's creation from Frankenstein, The Bride from Bride of Frankenstein, The Brundlefly from The Fly, and Bella Baxter from Poor Things. Okay, so best monster or creation. Well, we just said can't say Frankenstein's monster, but he is a creation. Frankenstein's creation.
Mm-hmm.
What do we think about this?
And an iconic, one of the most iconic characters in all of cinema, along with Henry Frankenstein, nearly said Victor, Henry Frankenstein, or more so even, isn't he? You know, because the creation goes on to have a much longer cinematic life and pop culture life than Dr. Frankenstein did.
Yeah, I think because it's the iconography of Frankenstein, like the creature, the creation. I think that is just so. It's so much in the zeitgeist still, and it's everybody recognizes the image of what that creation looks like.
The Boris Karloff performance and the design.
The Boris Karloff one. But then also like the way people have changed that over the years and given it its own spin. So I think just how much that has echoed through time is really important. But then I would also argue that like the bride in Bride of Frankenstein, for a character that is in the film so briefly, she's gone on to be as iconic as Frankenstein's creation in the first place.
Yeah, and still getting movies made about her in 2026.
Yeah, and sort of adding more layers to the story and the mythos around that particular character and trying to sort of branch it out rather than just the character in that original film who just pops up at the end, screams, and that's about it, not really turned into much of a three-dimensional character in the film, which was a shame. But again, like the look is so iconic.
Okay, what about Seth Brundle turning into his own creation, the Brundlefly, and renaming himself, acknowledging his own changing nature till he becomes a different character of Brundlefly?
Again, this is like such an iconic creation and monster, I would say as well, because there have been iterations of the Brundlefly in other things. Like I think when we did the episode, we talked about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and there is a character who is a giant fly in that, and I think there's that again is like another kind of iconic image, but specifically in that I think we're talking about the 80s film, right, the Cronenberg one, because it's Brundlefly. So I think that I think it's something more about the transformation in that film rather than the monster per se.
Yeah.
Because
this is we've talked a lot about. I mean, Frankenstein is the defining mad science story, but Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is the other one. The sort of the little brother of the mad science genre, isn't it? It's the difference between the scientist creating something and the scientist turning themselves into something. And as those are the definitive versions of both of those stories, they go on to influence other brilliant versions. And I think for me, The Fly is actually the best Jekyll and Hyde movie that we watched. So it's the mad scientist turning inwards and doing something to themselves, which is a different kind of mad scientist, but also very interesting. And yeah, I think the Brundlefly coming out the other side is the most horrific, definitely, version of that transformation.
That is a really good comparison, but I think the main difference between the sort of like obviously the transformation for the Jekyll and Hyde scenario is happening in The Fly. But the difference with The Fly is like his personality changed as much. I suppose it's like gradual, and as things go on, he sort of deteriorates more into a fly creature.
Yeah, it's not the black and white change by night or change by potion specifically.
The kind of like release of the id character. Yeah. We don't have that as much. But yeah, that's a really good point. So maybe that would be in a slightly different category that we don't have, like a transformation kind of category.
But it's still an iconic monster in creation.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And then a more modern day one, again, harking back to the Frankenstein era, Bella Baxter from Poor Things. Now, do you think that she is the best creation, would you say? Like, she's very different to what we've seen previously in the kind of Frankenstein iterations.
Yeah, good question. So I think that Bella Baxter might be the most compelling character who is a monster / creation in the mad science movie. She's a brilliant character. It's an amazing performance by Emma Stone. She's not like she's not a movie monster. She's not a monster. That's the point of all of these movies. But you know, she doesn't have that same kind of that. The point of the movie is that she experiences the world very differently to how Frankenstein's creation does because of what she looks like. So she's out there in the world with the same kind of naivety, but she's perceived by the world in almost the opposite way to how Mary Shelley wrote the creature. So she goes through a completely different experience, but it makes her less cinematically iconic. But I do think that she's one of the most compelling characters that we've seen.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you there. But I think in terms of what will people remember?
Yeah, in 100 years.
Yeah. Are they going to be like, oh, do you remember Emma Stone as Bella Baxter in Poor Things? I don't think it's going to have the same cut through.
No, but people will still dress up as Boris Karloff's
yeah.
creature. Yeah.
So I think for that reason, I'd have to give it to the Frankenstein's creation, like Boris Karloff specifically, I would say.
Yeah, and it's interesting how different that movie is to Mary Shelley's book, but that it is the definitive mad science creation on film.
Yeah, and
can't be anything else.
I mean, everyone's trying something different with Frankenstein's creation, but that is the blueprint.
There we go. That's our winner.
Look, it's moving. It's alive. It's alive. It's moving. It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. Oh, in the name of God. Now I know what it feels like to be God.
Okay, so our next category is the best lab or the best mad science set. So where does the scientist do their mad science? Where do they work?
Where are you doing your business, mad scientist?
So we have the Park Control and Genetics Complex in Jurassic Park.
Ooh.
The garage from The Absent-Minded Professor.
The garage.
Or the shed
lab.
even, yeah. The basement from Get Out, or the whole house, but, the science happens in the basement in Get Out. And, of course, the castle laboratory in Frankenstein.
Oh, this is interesting because our picks for this one they're not all necessarily the places you would think of when you're thinking about a best lab in a mad science category, are they?
Well, why not?
I think because, specifically, I would say the garage and the basement. I think they're nondescript in the way we describe them there, but like you say, that's where the mad science is happening in both of those. So, absent-minded professor.
We could rename the basement to the Armitage Procedure Compound. Does that make it sound better?
Oh, yeah. Now I'm definitely seeing it in this category.
Yeah.
But why do you think the garage then? Why do we think that's...
The garage in the Absent-Minded Professor, for people who haven't seen, this is the 60s, the original version of the movie Flubber, but I also think that the Robin Williams version of Flubber is a very good example of this, and we've seen quite a lot of them. We've talked about Wayne Zielinski working at home. It's the mad scientist who has limited resource and is working at home, and it's all just like test tubes and Bunsen burners and a whole complex arrangement of those in a confined space like a shed or a garage or, a spare room in the house or the attic, I think, in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I quite like this idea of the limited resource and having to, pursue your mad science endeavors at home as best you can and not in a sort of fully funded lab. So it's kind of the exact opposite, really, of the genetics lab in Jurassic Park, where they have seemingly all of the money in the world to clone these dinosaurs and create like a theme park around it. It's like an infinite tap of money funding that. So those are the two financial polar opposite ends of the spectrum, I think, is the Jurassic Park lab and the absent-minded professor just working out of his garage and developing Flubber.
Yeah, I think there is, like you said, the garage, I think there is something quite engaging about that and the familiarity of it, because so many people have garages. They've got their like little workshops in there, and it brings the sort of mad scientist into a more sort of grounded person. Like it could be anyone, and it adds that element of the kind of crackpot scientist to them. So I think it brings that sense of realism that sometimes you don't always get in science fiction, because sometimes a lab can be so foreign to your average Joe that it's not as easy to grasp. So because there's like again, it's all these sort of like iconography of like different test tubes and materials and technology. So it's the generic idea of what a mad scientist, where a mad scientist will be working, but this kind of branches out into everyday life, which I think is an interesting concept in itself.
And then we have Get Out, the basement / compound. This sort of straddles both, doesn't it? Because the geography, I really like the geography of Get Out. It mostly takes place in the Armitage family home. They have this facade of a welcoming family home above ground, which obviously has intense bad vibes, but the idea is that they are presenting as being welcoming, and then beneath the surface, literally, is all of the dark family secrets and what they're doing. But you have both sides of that. You have all of that within one geography. The house is everything. It's the above ground and the basement stuff. But it's all, you get a really good sense of space in that film. You've also got, this massive garden where they do that scary silent auction. That's all part of the geography of the film. And Peele just gets, I don't know, he just gets so much out of so little space, like so that it's a big house basically, but on film that works so well because every scene seems to be happening in a different room or space, but you still feel you're still a bit trapped.
And that goes back to the sort of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde idea as well, because I remember when we looked at that original film, well, in both the original films, there was like a basement lab. And
yes, the winding tunnel kind of down to the secret basement lab.
I think having all of your scientific experiments happening underneath your house is really interesting. And again, The Fly, I think there was a similar thing. So like the secrets lie underneath. So everything's just underneath the surface, and that works on sort of a thematic level as well, with sort of characters' motivations. So there is something about having a lab under a basement as this secret, this dirty little secret that's happening just under the surface of like the main story and the facade of these people above.
Yeah. And then what's our final one?
Well, this is the sort of, again, Frankenstein doing the blueprint.
The blueprint,
So when you think of big gothic castles and experiments happening there and lightning, it's all the James Whale stuff, isn't it? It's all of that look of what the lab is. It's a bit dusty and cobwebby and brings it back to those kind of early gothic iterations of the story and that kind of mystical fantasy element that's in these kind of mad science stories. So, because like if you take away the sort of scientific elements of these and make it like magic, it would be indistinguishable. But I think there's something about this melting pot of the two of them, with having the technology and this sort of gothic fantasy-esque castle, that is a really nice mix.
Yeah. Okay, I agree with all of that. What do you think then for the best lab?
Well, when we first started it, one of the first things we said were, I hope we see a lot of Tesla coils, or we will see a lot of Tesla coils.
Well, but we didn't really.
Yeah, there were a few.
There were a few, but not as many as I might have expected at the start, actually.
Yeah. Oh, it's tricky. I think when we looked at these, I was like, it's got to be Frankenstein's lab. But I think that's a little bit played out now. I think we see that so often. I think I'm more interested in like either the basement or the garage, which is just mad considering what I said at the start. But I think those are more interesting to me now.
Yeah, I think that there was something very visually interesting about the garage in The Absent-Minded Professor, and I think it goes on to inspire more of those mad scientists working at home. I mean, Henry was he was out on a limb in that castle, and the castle was his home, I think. Or certainly like he was doing it on his own, but there's something about the more working from home, that I really like, and it leads to it's an interesting design of the set in Absent-Minded Professor, and then it goes on to inspire stuff like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and the remake of Flubber and all of that.
Primer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. They've got a garage, haven't they?
Yeah. Everyone's doing their sort of like science in the garage nowadays, or in the shed.
So is the garage our favourite mad science set?
Oh my God, I think it might be.
There we go.
There you go. Everybody can...
We've talked ourselves into it.
Yeah, everyone can have their own mad science lab in their garage from now on.
Yes. Yes, Johnny. We've got it. Flopper.
Okay, next category is Best Creation Birth Scene. Oh, it's a good one. So we have the creature comes alive in Frankenstein / Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Now, I'm not sure which one we're going to give this to, but we can debate that in a second. The Bride Awakening in Bride of Frankenstein. Rocky's Unveiling and the musical number in Rocky Horror Picture Show. And Bella Baxter's introduction in Poor Things. Ooh, okay.
So you're a bit torn even in the nominations here, aren't we?
Yeah.
With Frankenstein and Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Again, I mean, what could be more iconic than the James Whale It's Alive
It's
scene?
alive!
Yeah. But then, I mean, personally, I really, really enjoyed Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The description, I think it came from like a contemporary review, didn't it? Rock and Roll Monster Movie, or maybe even Branagh said that in interviews or something. But that is a good description of the movie, and never more so than the birth scene. You've got this enormous like brass tank, the thunder and lightning, and Robert De Niro emerging screaming and running into the night, and Branagh's hunky muscly body, of course, as well.
Keeps coming back to Branagh's muscly body.
It's peak Branagh. But I thought that was amazing. I think it's a very good gothic, over the top movie, while also being very faithful to Shelley's book. Although Shelley is actually contradictorily quite vague about the actual creation moment. But I think Branagh puts it to screen really, really well. So I can't even decide on which should be nominated. They're both very good.
I think we can class them both in this one because they are great. And then we've got The Bride of Frankenstein with The Bride Awakening. Now, this is a kind of moment which is similar, but she's all done up in bandages, isn't she? And then she's revealed to the world.
Yeah.
With that iconic hair and sort of the flowing dress and that look where she looks a bit sort of like an Egyptian mummy, like some sort of pharaoh. So I think that is a really iconic moment, but is it the best?
And this film is famous for the fact that she's in it so briefly. It's a film called Bride of Frankenstein, and the bride doesn't show up until the very end of the very, very end of the movie. But it speaks to how iconic this scene is, that the imagery and the look of the bride is almost on a par with the Boris Karloff creature design, and has lived almost as long in the pop culture memory, and yet she's on screen for like 2 minutes or something ridiculous. So that does speak to how powerful this creation and birth scene is for the bride.
But how do you top that? Well, I would say the only way to top that is by adding in a musical number and having Tim Curry dancing around and more muscly men. So Rocky Horror Picture Show, I think that definitely deserves a spot in this category.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, just adding in a musical number, as we did at the start of the show, is just makes everything better, doesn't it? And just such a fun movie, totally gets what it's parodying / homaging, and they have, I mean, there's kind of 2 songs in one, isn't there? Because they're singing I Can Make You a Man, Rocky busts out, sings Sword of Damocles about himself, and then they have like a reprise of I think there's like a reprise of I Can Make You a Man. Does Eddie also bust in at some point and have his own song on the motorcycle?
Literally just after as well. Again, they're kind of taking from Bride of Frankenstein with the sort of mummification of Rocky beforehand, all of that. And then just the announcement of Tim Curry as Dr. Frankenfurter gives as well, just saying like, I've created this thing. It's a new breakthrough in biochemical research. All of this stuff to set the scene before you break out into a massive musical number and then unveil this hunky blonde guy. So I think it really stays in your mind. And I think it's something different to a lot of the creation scenes we've seen, because a lot of them are kind of what you would expect almost.
Yeah. And then finally we have Bella Baxter. There is a proper birth / creation scene in Poor Things, but it is told in flashback, I think, isn't it? Because Bella is around and living in the house at the start of the story, and then we get more and more revealed about her history. She has a really interesting creation, doesn't she? She's a transplanted baby's brain into the mother's body, and we are shown that there's a cool, proper cool mad science. She's like, you see Emma Stone with she's got like a head bracket of electrodes. I think that's the sort of main creation. But there is something about the storytelling choice to show it in flashback that reduces the impact. Frankenstein bringing his creation to life through thunder and lightning and racing around the lab in insanity is a big moment in the story, in the progression of the narrative, whereas it's already happened to Bella. And that's appropriate because it's a story about her as a character, isn't it? It's less about her coming into being is much more about what happens to her in the story and her going out into the world, not how she was created. So I think it's deliberate to sort of push it to the flashback. But does that make it a bit less iconic?
Yeah, because it stands out as a big twist in the film, doesn't it? Because it's a big moment that they're building up to, the revelation about Bella Baxter and where she comes from, because it's never really clear. But yeah, you're right. It's more sort of the concept of it than actually seeing it unfold on screen. It's told through backstory, isn't it? And that's where it sort of has its issues with maybe being the best creation birth scene. It's a great concept. I love the concept, but I don't know if it quite fits for the award.
Okay. All right then. So what are we thinking is going to be the winner?
I mean, the film aficionado in me thinks it should be Frankenstein, but my gut and my heart is saying I fucking love the musical numbers in Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah. When we were just talking about it, I was exactly the same. I was like, well, obviously it'll be Frankenstein again for this one, or maybe The Bride. It's so iconic just for like 2 minutes. But then I was just thinking about where's my heart at on this, and what did I actually enjoy watching the most? And definitely Rocky coming to life. Like, how could it be anything else? That's such a fun film.
Well, sorry, Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. We're giving this one to Dr. Frankenfurter and Rocky Horror Picture Show.
You are fortunate, for tonight is the night that my beautiful creature is destined to be born.
The sword of Damocles is hanging over my head.
So our next category is the hidden gem. This is where we're just going to talk about some of the less famous, less well-known films that we talked about this series that we've really enjoyed, kind of like our recommendations, I guess, from this series that you might have missed. So for our hidden gem category, we have a few more to suggest than the other categories. We've got number 1, The City of Lost Children, Time After Time, The Man in the White Suit, Upstream Colour, Das Experiment, Tusk, and The Island of Dr. Moreau. Now, that is The Island of Dr. Moreau from 1996, specifically.
Ooh.
Not The Island of Lost Souls from 1932.
That is not a hidden gem. Everybody knows about The Island of Lost Souls.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with The City of Lost Children then. So this was an interesting French film. We haven't covered that many foreign language films in this series, but I think this one was equal parts fantasy fairy tale as it was mad science, and we had like a really good mad scientist in this. It's one that I would definitely recommend to people because it's something different to what you would normally get with kind of a mad science film, I'd say.
It is incredibly French. Is that fair to say?
I think that's fair to say, yeah.
It is luxurious and beautiful and ugly as well. Like it treads that line between sort of beauty and disgust in how it presents its world. Very fairy tale-esque, but also a sci-fi story. Yeah, great, enjoyable, weird movie.
Yeah, so if you haven't checked that one out, I would strongly suggest giving City of Lost Children a go. Also got a very interesting cameo, well, I wouldn't say cameo, appearance from Ron Perlman that you wouldn't expect to see in this French-speaking film, but he pops up in that. Next up, we got Time After Time. So Time After Time was one which we almost covered in our time travel series, but it
was like an also ran for time travel, and I was glad that we got the opportunity to come back to it in Mad Science. And what a mad idea of a movie. H.G. Wells travels through time to hunt Jack the Ripper through 1970s America. San Francisco, I think, somewhere in California, I think.
It's the maddest concept you can think of, but it was great. And you've got David Warner playing Jack the Ripper, Malcolm McDowell as H.G. Wells. You've got Mary Steenburgen in there as well as sort of the love interest. It's so much fun. And it's just something I never would have thought would have got made, really, because it's just such a weird concept.
And this is directed by Nicholas Meyer. So in the meantime, since we did our Time After Time episode, we have covered Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan on Patreon. So we've talked extensively about Nicholas Meyer, but he is a brilliant director. And this is the film that he made immediately before Star Trek II. So I think it's also his first film as a director, Time After Time.
What a film to take on as like one of your first films. That's mad.
Then we have The Man in the White Suit. So Alec Guinness playing a mad scientist creating an amazing fabric.
Yeah, a comedy sci-fi from the 50s, which is from Ealing Studios, and it's got like a very satirical nature to it. It's bringing attention to the idea of like commercialization in factories and the scientific aspects of what would happen if you could create a fabric that never stained or wore out, and how that would affect the markets for clothing. And it's a really interesting one to look at. So it was one which has been on my list for a long time, and I think the Mad Science series was the right time to look at it.
Yeah. And it's fun and a bit silly. Like your description is absolutely accurate, but you're saying
it is silly.
He's getting into like disrupting corporate revenue and what would be the implications of that, which doesn't sound particularly exciting, but it is funny, and it's a caper.
It is a caper, and it's got like a weird gurgling musical sound throughout.
Oh yeah,
when they're doing the experiments. But yeah, one of the many endearing factors that make that film worth a watch. And then we've got Upstream Colour. So Upstream Colour, the one-man band, Shane Carruth doing everything for that film. This one took some real diving into in the episode, because it's quite a abstract film, and it's told in a sort of non-linear fashion almost. So I think when we were looked at that, it took some deciphering, didn't it, Matt?
Yeah, so this is Shane Carruth, who made Primer, and he's only made 2 films, Primer and this. And his films are hard to watch, I think. Is a fair... They're complex, and like you say, they take some effort to dive into, but they're very rewarding when you do. And yeah, one-man band, as you say, writes, directs, produces, edits. He's like, he's Tommy Wiseau, but good. And I think part of the reason that he has only made 2 films is that he wants to do that. I don't know if he could make more, if he would just sort of work in a more traditional system of filmmaking. But this is even more impenetrable than Primer, but very rewarding when you get into it. And a much more visual and sensory experience than Primer was.
Yeah, definitely. It really takes you on a journey, that one. And the next film that we've got down here in our Hidden Gems list is Das Experiment. So again, another foreign language film that we looked at in the series. Das Experiment is kind of loosely based around the Stanford prison experiment from 1971.
Yeah.
Tells a story of 20 men who volunteer to be placed into a makeshift prison for 12 days and the kind of repercussions that has on them psychologically, and all of the terrible things that happen as a result of that experiment.
But turning it into a compelling, exciting, and also quite miserable at the same time horror thriller movie.
Yeah, I did think for a second, I was like, is this going to turn into my explanation of the man in the white suit? And you come in and go, it's a really big comedy.
No, not a lot, not too much fun. Das Experiment.
Yeah.
But a really good film. But I'll tell you what, the next one is a horror movie that actually is a lot of fun. Kevin Smith's Tusk, which is, again, back to having a more of a sense of humour amongst some decent body horror as well, and just weird body horror.
Yeah. I think one of your comments on that particular film was it feels like it's a bit of an in-joke, though. So
yes, yeah.
If you are a Kevin Smith fan, definitely recommend giving Tusk a go. The creation, the transformation in itself is just worth seeing on screen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's a backstory here, isn't there, which is the film was like based on... I think they were just like riffing a story out on their podcast. It's actually quite hard to find. I don't think the podcast is available for free. I think you have to like sign up to Kevin Smith's world to get it. But you do hear some clips of it in the credits of the movie. And then they turn that riffed story into an actual movie. So yeah, you do feel like you're watching an in-joke a little bit, but it stands on its own, doesn't it?
Yeah,
just
definitely.
about.
And the final one we got down here is one we had a lot of fun watching, which is The Island of Dr. Moreau from 1996. And this was like in contention when we did that episode on The Island of Lost Souls. We were talking about, do we cover The Island of Dr. Moreau from 96 or do we cover the 70s version? And after looking into the history around the production of this particular version of the film, the 96 version, there was a lot to uncover, wasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. The argument I think that we were sort of circling around was the one from the 1970s is a good movie, I think.
Yeah.
And the one from 1996 is not a very good movie, but it is transcending its badness into being a famously bad film, a famously disastrous production process. Marlon Brando just showing up on set with no real clue what's going on, and yet still delivering a great performance because he's Marlon Brando. The guy who either wrote it or directed it getting fired from the film and then showing back up on set and sort of stalking the movie a little bit,
Richard
seemingly.
Stanley.
Yeah, just absolutely fascinating stuff. A weird movie. Yes, a bad movie, but we've got a lot of love for bad movies on this show, and this is one of the best I've ever seen, and just so fascinating, the production and all of that. I had such a good time watching the film, learning about the film, talking about the film. Yeah, probably one of my favourite episodes this series was that Brando discussion.
It was really good. Really delved into the mad science of the filmmaking in that one. And I'd also recommend there's a fantastic documentary which we talk about in that particular episode as well, called Lost Soul: The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau, from 2014, and it really goes in depth on all of the trials and tribulations that they came across making that film.
In fact, if I was going to recommend anything, it would be the double feature of The Island of Dr. Moreau and the documentary about the making of it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, that was our hidden gems from the series. We've got one final category to nail down in today's episode, the finale episode of our Mad Science series. We've got to crown the best mad science movie that we've come across in our journey through mad science. Okay, so the nominees are, you guessed it, Frankenstein. Frankenstein again. And we've also got The Fly, specifically the 80s version, Jurassic Park, and Matt's favourite, clearly, Re-Animator.
Yeah. And we did talk about, we're trying to keep these categories, apart from the hidden gems where we're more recommending films to you listeners. We've been trying to keep these categories to 4. And we were talking about whether Bride of Frankenstein should make it into the mix. Because, I mean, I've heard a lot of people talk about Bride of Frankenstein as being superior to Frankenstein and one of those sequels that actually transcends it. I don't know about you, James, but I don't agree with that. I think Frankenstein is the better movie.
I mean, I think Bride of Frankenstein is really interesting, and it does some like crazy stuff with like the homunculi and all that kind of stuff. And is it Dr. Pretorius? So all of that stuff is really fun. But the titular character you don't see until the very end, and she's not really given enough screen time or development. So I think that is against it.
Yeah.
It's still a really iconic film, but I think when we're talking about like best mad science films and the kind of like iconic nature of them, I think James Whale's one has more of those scenes that are instantly recognizable. The bits where the creation is being chased by all of the village folk with their torches, the creation itself, like with the lightning and the Tesla coils and the it's alive moment. I think it's got all of that stuff, which is just so fundamental to these kind of stories.
Absolutely. And then we have The Fly, which we have already touched on a little bit, but there's something about, for me, the way it transcends and replaces Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde as that kind of mad science story. That's very difficult to do. Like, we haven't talked about a Frankenstein movie that overtakes Frankenstein. There are a lot of good ones, and I really enjoyed Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the Branagh one, but it doesn't edge out James Whale's movie. But I think The Fly, nobody's done it better than Cronenberg, the transformation mad scientist movie, and it's just a brilliant, disgusting body horror movie.
I think also building upon everything from that first original version of The Fly as well. Like, that is a terrifying film in itself, but it's kind of like it starts off as this kind of murder mystery, whereas Cronenberg's taken it and he's made it all a kind of metaphor for the AIDS epidemic and all of this stuff. So it's the themes change and it becomes more about the body horror elements. All of the special effects that are used in that film really sort of make it stand out. And you talked about other iterations of Frankenstein, like the James Whale version is still sort of like the iconic version, but people are still trying to make something different. I mean, Del Toro's just done a Frankenstein version, which we covered, and he's tried to do things slightly differently. But I think when you look at The Fly from the 50s and The Fly from the 80s, Cronenberg has just flipped that story in a different way to make it more interesting. And I don't think I've seen that with Frankenstein in the same way since, really.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of the best example of a genre, I mean, just a blockbuster action monster movie, Jurassic Park, I can think of few films that do that kind of thing better. This is Steven Spielberg at the absolute peak of his powers. We must have talked about this on the episode, but the same year he released Schindler's List, and just how ridiculous that is as a fact that he did that. He was doing that at the same time. But yeah, one of the best filmmakers of all time at the absolute peak of his abilities, producing a blockbuster action movie.
Yeah, ticking all the boxes with this one. And it's this film as well, in terms of like the mad science of filmmaking, the revolutionary nature of the special effects that are in this, all of the CGI that was used in the making of the film, and sort of the use of that has then gone on to make so many other films possible, and the development of those kind of technologies. I think Jurassic Park was really influential in that, and then making people believe that you could create something like this on screen.
And then finally, Re-Animator, one of my favourite films of all time, and an intensely fun watch, I would say. Honestly, as enjoyable of a film to watch as Jurassic Park, or The Fly, or Frankenstein, but yeah, any of them.
Yeah, I think Re-Animator is just one of those... it's just one of those rare cult films that has kind of found its way almost into the mainstream. It's like it feels mainstream enough that people know about it more than your average cult film. But there is still something very special when you come across it, I think, at a certain age. Which is clearly the case for you, because it's stuck in your memory.
Yeah. Probably like the day after I watched Evil Dead 2 or something. I watched Re-Animator and it just sort of imprinted on me.
That's a great double whammy.
Mm. Okay, so what do you think is the best mad science movie? What's that noise?
I'm just trying to think. I feel it should be Frankenstein.
Yeah.
For like all of the things it's inspired. But is it my favourite out of these?
Okay.
I don't know if it is.
Yeah.
I think if you were giving it in terms of like academically, then James Whale's Frankenstein is the one that stands out as the blueprint, which is why I've talked about it all over this episode and all over this series. Yeah. But I think in terms of mad science movies that I've just really enjoyed and the whole concept of it, it's between The Fly and Jurassic Park for me.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think because, again, it's the time... like time in my life I came across both these films. Like The Fly was when I was a teenager and got into more sorts of like the gruesome nature of cinema and all of those spectacles. And Jurassic Park was the kind of the one I watched when I was younger as the kind of entry point to all of this stuff. So I think, it's very tricky. What are your thoughts on this one?
We can have a different choice. We normally have a different choice when we come to like the best movie of the series.
Yeah.
We often have a different choice. I think that's fine. And I agree with you about the sort of differentiation between a sort of academically minded choice. I don't think we ever are led by that when it comes to the best movie of the series, right? And I think the question is, if you could only watch one of these four films, if you had to watch one of these four films tonight, what are you watching? And I know my answer. I'm putting on Re-Animator. So what are you thinking? It sounds like it's The Fly or Jurassic Park for you. I'm gonna force you to pick one.
I'm gonna do Jurassic Park because
it's a great choice.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no wrong choice there for you.
Yeah, exactly. But I think The Fly does take a certain mood.
That's true.
Yeah,
you are always in the mood for Jurassic Park or Re-Animator. Jurassic Park would be my second choice in this one as well.
Jurassic Park or Re-Animator. I think, yeah, you're right. It depends on the audience for Re-Animator, I guess. There's certain scenes in that one that aren't as family friendly.
Yeah, but it's all good fun, isn't it? I think it would, after like a really long week at work on a Friday night, I actually can't imagine putting on the Fly just to like relax, you know?
Wind down.
Yeah. Whereas couple of cans of beer in Jurassic Park or Re-Animator, that's a great Friday night.
Oh, lovely. Well, I think we can give that to two different films in this one.
Of course we can.
But well, that's it for the awards. I can't believe it.
Well done to all the winners and the nominees.
Yes. And if you're a film that didn't get mentioned, I'm sure you'll get over it.
Do better next time.
But at least you've got a whole episode dedicated to you in the back catalogue of the podcast.
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you did it.
This is not magic, as you say. I am a scientist.
So what is your big takeaway from the Mad Science series, do you think, Matt?
I think that the underlying thing is don't play God. That's the message from the genre of mad science, isn't it? There is a transgression to mad science that shouldn't. There is always a line that shouldn't be crossed, and we see it found and crossed in various ways in all of these movies.
I think also it's about people should really do a risk assessment before they do these things. Yeah. And maybe think about what you're doing first, but also it's a lot of male egos in this. It's a lot of silly men just being like, right, I'm going to swing my dick around and I'm going to make this big scientific discovery and everyone's going to love me. And I think like the ones which kind of don't have that are when they are saved by their personal relationships. I think that doesn't happen enough in these kind of the mad scientist stories. When there is someone to sort of ground them and give them some compassion and a bit of a reality check, that's when you see these mad scientists not blow up the world or do something horrendous. They can kind of come back from their actions or maybe take a beat before creating that creature or downing that serum or doing that procedure on these people. I think all of that, I'll take away from this series.
Well, thank you very much for listening. It's been an exciting journey through mad science. Do get in touch with your thoughts. Let us know what we missed. There's always movies that we've missed. Maybe we'll cover them on Patreon. So let us know what the also ran should be, and we might cover a few more, clear up some loose ends on Patreon.
Yes, definitely. But before we go in today's episode, we've got one more thing to do, and that is to finally announce what we will be covering in the next series of Journey Through Sci-Fi. Should we get a little drum roll for this one, Matt?
Yeah. Are we going to do another music? No, I don't know if we have time for another
musical
musical
I don't think we've got
okay.
time for another musical.
All right, I'll just have to rewatch the broadcast.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have a closing musical number, but we haven't got the facilities.
There's the budget.
There's no time.
Anyway, next time we're going to go on hiatus and take a little break from the podcast, but when we return, we will be starting a new series discussing aliens.
Finally, we're covering aliens on the series. It's a big one, which we've been holding back on, but I think we were waiting for the right time and also looking at the right way to approach it.
Yes, so specifically, we are looking at alien movies where we come in peace. We're going to be talking about friendly aliens or aliens that are perceived to be friendly or turn out to be friendly, but we'll figure out the different ways into the friendly aliens genre as we get into that series.
Yes, so friendly aliens. So we will be compiling our list of films to look at for that series. So if you have any recommendations for films you want to hear us cover in the new series of Journey Through Sci-Fi, send them through on email, journeythroughsci-fi@gmail.com, or drop us a message on Facebook, Instagram. Wherever we are, you can find us at Through Sci-Fi or at Through Sci-Fi Pod.
Yep, send us your suggestions. Anything, it can be anything. The biggest names in Friendly Aliens are absolutely welcome, but also, the stuff that's going to make the hidden gems list at the end of that series. We always need your help in finding those movies. So yeah, do get in touch. So if you want to hear more from us when that series drops, you will need to be subscribed. So please do subscribe to the show if you are not already.
And if you want a free and easy way to support this podcast, why not leave us a review? And if you leave a comment, it's a really quick and easy way to help new listeners find us and discover the show on the various different podcast platforms out there.
You can also support the show by visiting patreon.com/Journey Through Sci-Fi and signing up as a patron there, where you will get access to all of our bonus content. We are going on a break before our new series, but new episodes will be releasing on Patreon during that break, so you can come and listen to us there while we're off on the free feed.
Yes, make sure to look out for new episodes on Patreon, and we will be back with our new series, We Come in Peace, very soon.
Until then, listeners, thank you very much for listening to our Mad Science series. We'll be back very soon, but that's all for now.
Bye, Mad Science.
Bye-bye, Mad Science.